How has the American opinion changed over time? By Taylor, Charlie, and John. Freedom. What is the difference between a right and a freedom?
I believe that a right is something that you are able to do, like right to bear arms or something like that, versus a freedom is something that is more personal, that I think that you're able to do in your house, and that as long as it doesn't affect anybody else, versus right is kind of general guidelines, general rules that everybody has to follow.
Would you add or remove any amendments to the Constitution, or change the government in any way?
Less government. Well, it's just there's too many regulations, too much stuff going on in it. We look to the government to do too much.
I would say we should add the right to privacy, especially on the internet. So the question really is, what does that look like?
We asked people what amendments they would add or change about the Constitution. The most interesting answer that we got was the addition of a right to privacy, extending the right to privacy to all people. Now, the beautiful thing about the Constitution is that it's a living document. As Thomas Jefferson once said, it is a document for the living, not for the dead. This means that the ideas of the old do not have to constrain the ideas of the new, allowing our society to grow. This allows our constitutional laws to adapt to the changing ideas and opinion in our country. This is why the Constitution has stood for 200 years, because it's constantly adapting to the people that it governs. That way, it always represents them. That way, the ideas of the old don't have to govern our current society. As Thomas Jefferson said, that'd be like forcing a man to wear a coat that he wore as a child his entire life.
Well, our founding fathers' intent was to not define freedom. Their idea was to make it so we could change if we wanted more freedom or if we wanted to more swing to an area of protection.
Since in that era, a lot of the people who were like on top of the social classes were white males. Women didn't really have rights, so I think they really intended freedoms for those like predominant figures in society.
We asked people to compare and contrast the freedoms we have today to the freedoms our founding fathers intended for us to have. It was taken in two different ways. The first was how freedom has expanded in both ways and to different types of people. The second is the government's expansion in recent years in both its regulations on the economy and in the entitlements it gives to its people. Education. What do you think needs to change in the American educational system?
Government involvement in maybe test-taking or testing is not good. I think that their idea of what students learn and how they learn are not necessarily best reflected in a standardized test. So I think since I've been teaching for all these years, we move more and more towards these standardized testing to show how a student is learning. Not that that's not one indicator. I think there's an overemphasis in that indication.
I think the education system has done a good job changing since I was in school. I look back to when I was in school and we just sat in desks all day long and it was not geared towards different types of learners. And so I look at nowadays and I think that it's definitely changed to keep up with different types of learners, but I think with everything in life, you can always evaluate how things are and how they can be improved to be better.
I don't know what the right answer is to how our education system should change, but I know that it should change.
What we gleaned from asking people about education was that most Americans thought that the education system needed to change. Most people we asked thought that the American education system was moving in the right direction, since learning has moved more towards an individualistic style since they were kids. Unfortunately, the educators that we interviewed on this topic were disappointed in our movements towards standardization, thinking that more work needed to be invested in individualistic learning styles.
I believe that education has gone far too much into standardized, that all students are supposed to be fitting this one standardized model, and I think we should be going towards a very different model that is looking at personalizing education, and this political focus on accountability has led to simplifying what we're supposed to be doing, and I don't think that that's necessarily, it's good for some places, I don't think it's good for everybody.
How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so...
Violence. Do you think it is justifiable to insert U.S. soldiers in foreign wars?
Yes. I think it's mostly important if the freedom and protection of our and safety of our country is in jeopardy. But I also think it's important for like a humane perspective of it to kind of insert ourselves into violent scenarios when there are innocent lives in jeopardy.
You know, in cases of human atrocities, maybe, as a general rule, I think we should keep our nose out of other people's business. Because who are we to say what's right or wrong? Unless someone's being, seriously hurt.
We asked people if they thought it was justifiable to deploy U.S. soldiers in foreign wars. There was agreement that if it was for the defense of our own country, then it was indeed justified. Although we had dissenting opinions over the fact of humanitarian efforts. The main question on the opposing side was, who are we to judge what's right and wrong? While others thought that we not only should do it, but that it is our moral obligation to help those in need. Do you think America is becoming more or less violent?
I believe it's become more violent just because people aren't happy with the economy and the way things are going right now. And so they're deciding that they're going to act out their anger in very unpractical ways. So yes, I do believe violence has increased over the years.
I think that we're more aware of violence that goes on. I think maybe a little bit more violent, but I think that just because of digital media, we know more that happens in different places in the nation.
More violent. I think the population increase is one. And I think there's more access, we know more. It might have always been that way, but we know instantaneously now.
Most people agreed that America is becoming more violent, but this is probably because the media is magnifying events of violence. We believe that the perception of increase in violence is due to the media and the increase in population. America has changed in so many ways in the past 200 years. This is empowered by the adaptability of our Constitution and individualistic spirit that makes up America. So we are still changing and pushing ever forward into the world.
Bye!